and we've got the field coming around. It is Blake Purdy, the young fella, looks just like a jockey. He's pint-sized and fits into one of these prototypes beautifully. Jason Macris right alongside the champion from a couple of years ago. Here we go, it's a rolling start. Everybody needs to start forming up. Paul Trengo, pretty toey to get going there in the west, tucked right up behind Blake Purdy. He's in the newer Wolf there as well, alongside. John Paul Drake drives out magnificently. That is a brand new car. It's the Wolf F1 Mistral, and he fires it right around the outside, just like an F1. And let's listen out for that V8 powered Nissan LMP3 off in the background there, jostling for place down into turn one. Mark Lauke now, champion 3 times. A gentleman racer, an older lad at the wheel there from South Australia in the number 55, and not scared of showing the nose to John Paul Drake.
That car of JP Drake, I saw that in testing the lead up to this first round, Daz, at the Bend the other week. Just got such a distinctive sound compared to everything else that's out on the circuit right now. But the man in second place, we've got a spinner coming
Peter
out
Patton
of turn 4, and a perfect 360, grabs the gear and keeps going, JP.
Yeah, just look, I don't think there's any contact there. Just may have been the cold tyres, just lost the rear out of turn 4. But hey, cool cars. I really love that start around the outside. That car in front's got the halo on it as well, being a new car with some new regulations and a bit of a safety upgrade. So cool to see. And it was, yeah, big move around the outside, but he got the job done. He's in the lead.
We're actually seeing the generations of sports races onto the prototypes on the screen now. JP in the newer West. We've got John Paul, then we've got Jason Macris. Then we go back to Paul Trengo in the older West WX10. But don't discount Trengo. He's an ex-Formula Holden racer, Formula Brabham racer. He'll work every bit of that West out. In fact, this track has been a happy hunting ground for the West. So low, they've got such a low frontal area down this straight here. You'll see how it tucks in. John Paul Drake leads at lap number 1, and he's got the wily veteran looking down the inside of him there. And have a look at Mark Lauke. He spent most of 2019 spinning this Wolf, and now he's spinning it right up into the front of this race. John Paul Drake just hiding underneath that halo there, as Jack Perkins mentioned. Macris up the inside of Lauke there and just relegates him back 2 spots. Here comes Purdy, the young fella, in that number 48, the Nippies Jam Motorsport entry.
How good's this race? Awesome. 2 wide through turn 1, fastest corner, one of the fastest corners in Australian motorsport, and then he got the 1 up and 1 back under and did a great job to get back in the lead. That was awesome. Bit of argy-bargy there through to turn 2 as well, Nolts.
You're right there, Jack. Insane racing going down the main straight. How's it for Lauke? He's going to have an issue here, Daz. It's dropping down the order. He was challenging for the lead on the main straight and now has dropped right down into 6th position. So Trengo's got the job done there in car number 5. He's been out the seat for 12 months. He went and tested that car last Friday as well in South Australia. Recently relocated over to Western Australia, where he's now the general manager at the Perth Motorplex over there, but having a lot more fun, I'd say, today back behind the wheel of his car.
He certainly has loved returning to the sport and really enjoyed the WX10 as well. It's not an expensive way to go racing. It's kind of like a Formula Ford. You get an old RF86 and weld on some bits and pieces. I make it that simple, don't I? Then you bring ground effects into it, and you've got to have a lot more stronger than just an old RF86 with some bits welded on. But certainly, these cars now, we're seeing the Wolf in the next generation. The prototype series, here we go again. Here's some action with Peter Patton when he went round. Now, Peter will be thinking, he'll be thinking there's contact there. He's also got a Radical race coming up. This is a Radical, so it's got an opportunity to run in 2 events. And prior to this morning's program adjustment, because of fog, they were going to be running with a couple of categories in between. So he's going to go back-to-back. Macris, again, down the inside there. So it's another look at it. The young bloke, Purdy, in the 48, looks alongside there. But I tell you what, Phil Hughes' weekend of horror continues. The Hughes Supercar Servers Cafe Cavalli out of Melbourne, a huge part of Alan Simonson's career. He was the engineer behind Alan for many years with the Ferraris, and Lauke's car is just bouncing around there. There's something going on at the back of it, and we've got a safety car there. So wherever it was that Phil Hughes has halted, I would suggest that Motorsport Australia Race Control have said, we've got to remove that. So whilst this safety car is on, it gives us a bit of an opportunity to have a good look at these cars. There's our Hyundai i30 safety car, travels right around the country with the Shannon's Motorsport Australia Championship. Great to have Hyundai as a partner. And there's Phil Hughes again. And as we see, I mean, Radical's a UK-built car, but Phil is a Ferrari expert, and that's why he's got the tricolour running over it, the Italian colours there. And as I touched on, was a huge part of bringing Alan Simonson to Australia, winning the GT Championship in the Cooper's Ferrari. You'll remember that one, Nels?
Back in the day, yeah.
The green rocket.
That is bringing back some memories.
So it's a huge part of Alan Simonson's career. In fact, there is a car that hasn't taken part here this weekend in the paddock, which Phil started his Radical career with, which he bought with Alan Simonson with the intent to do prototype racing with that car with his great mate. And it was interesting going back 5 seasons ago, a very, very wet day, and Phil Hughes is an Englishman, and a very wet day at Sandown, and it was about 1 metre deep down the main straight because we know how well Sandown drains. And he won his first race, and it was the day the mechanic became a race driver, because as soon as he got to the line, the number 1 went right up in the air, just like any race driver would. And I was talking to him later and just said, mate, I could see you go from being just the meek and mild mechanic, having a bit of a go at racing, to filling out the helmet and the driving suit and becoming a race driver. And here he is, unfortunately, getting towed away. He's had a head gasket go, he's had a brake disc explode, and it's not a great weekend. So we've got him off track. Hopefully we can get racing.
That car was parked really awkwardly on the way into turn number 9 there, so I don't think there's any contact with anyone. Certainly a failure on the 42, so they'll tow him out the way, and we should go back to green flag racing pretty quickly here. These guys, keep in mind, haven't raced in nearly 24 hours. I'm sure he might have been lobbying to race in the foggy conditions earlier today, but nothing doing there, sadly. So it's their final race of the weekend here at Sydney Motorsport Park.
I think he actually used it wisely to keep working on the car to try and get it out. Now this car here, the LMP3 on screen, and a DES 03. Full ground effects, proper LMP3 car, runs a V8 Nissan power plant, very, very fast car. You might say unfair to be running in the Australian Prototype Series because we're talking 1000cc 1.6 turbos, but the balance of performance that has been instigated, it's like any balance of performance document, it's technical, but there's 7 ways that they've deemed that you can do the balance of performance. Each driver has an option to choose the 2 that they prefer to do: turbo boost, air restriction, ride height, weight, various others, and combinations of both. So they can pick what suits their particular operation.
And it's worth mentioning, there's a lot of them coming out now to Australia. They had an Asian Le Mans Series race at the Bend some time ago, and Tim Slade was actually driving one for Dutton's Garage at the Bend the other day. So there's more and more of them coming out to Australia, so no doubt we'll see them in the Australian Prototype Series. And you mentioned it at the top of the race, the distinctive note of that engine in that car. It sounds real cool. It reminds me of the Le Mans era of cars. It's really cool.
Yeah, you sort of close your eyes and you'll be in a paddock in France somewhere in the middle of the night with the 24-hour car.
And I did that Friday night, parked up the final turn here in the darkness, and you can just hear it coming around the back of the circuit. Just a unique tone. I think we're going to go back to some racing here pretty quickly, boys, and get this remaining 8 laps in the books.
Let's see if John Paul Drake in this brand new car, the Wolf F1 Mistral, the number 66, the South Australian grocer, greengrocer for a living almost. He's got a couple of supermarkets. And you're exactly right, Matt Nolte. On the back of his fireproofs it says Shake and Drake. You've got to have personalities like this guy in racing, and he's doing a ripping job. He knows the strength of his new car, leaves it very late. His good mate Jason Macris goes with him, the young fella Blake Purdy. He's not friending up with anyone. He wants to win this. He's quite a quiet young bloke. Certainly his dad's getting into the social scene in behind the Australian Prototype Series, which is pretty strong actually. There's quite a good camaraderie. Here's Mark Lauke. Has he sorted it out? It seems as though that car's running a really, really stiff rear end in it. It's definitely bouncing around here. John Paul Drake gets away, the gloves go up in the air. Really cool to be able to see right inside the cockpit and see the hands come up and the head. Some of the longer races, you start to see these guys because they're all gentlemen racers. There's not a pro amongst them. At the end of 8 laps, with all the G-forces, their heads start to wobble around a little bit and they start to get pretty tired. So these things do pull some of the highest G-forces, and it's all about the air going under the car and over the wings. So they use both upper and lower sides of the vehicle.
And they're really cool looking cars. It's worth pointing out these Wolf racing cars are actually built in Italy, and they've probably got the best power to weight ratio of any of the categories here this weekend. It's just under 400 kilos, the total weight of the car, so it's less than half a ton, and they've got 220 horsepower, so the power to weight ratio is phenomenal.
Andrea Lettieri there in the LMP3 car, the V8 Nissan. having a bit of a spin there. An amateur driver who is working very closely with Garnett Patterson, who's a Formula 3 driver here in Australia and has done LMP3 racing throughout Europe as well. But Garnett has been very, very closely working with Andreas Latour.
He's a very handy steerer, Garnett. He's a very good driver, and he's got a lot of experience in these cars too.
Have a look at Lauke, just blows past Blake Purdy. And that's interesting because Mark Lauke is a big fan of Blake Purdy. Every time I've gone up to catch up with the guys, he's like, oh, have you spoken to Blake? Come over and we'll speak to Blake. And Mark Lauke he's 3 times Australian champion in the prototypes. The guy from Lauke Flour Mills, also from Adelaide, and doing a ripping job. Purdy now just being shown by the wily veteran, mate, if you're not going to do it, I'll come past and you watch and learn. The masterclass from Mark Lauke here for Blake Purdy.
The Purdy car, one of several cars in the field, being run and engineered by the Jam Motorsport team, which are based at the Ben Motorsport Park in South Australia now. Paul Trengove's car is another one that's in the field at the back. As now Purdy looks like they're going to engage in a race-long battle. You lead this one, I'll lead the next one.
Righto, young fella, this is how you do it.
Yeah.
Now show me how you can do it just a tad faster.
Exactly.
Yeah. Yeah, it's the master and apprentice, isn't it? I'll show you the way, but respect me on your way through. Please leave the guards on the side of my car. But Mark Lauke's always had that bright yellow car. You can always pick him out. It's the corporate, I guess, look for Lauke Flour Mills. And John Paul Drake, this just suits him fantastic. He's got the Superman symbol on the front of his driving suit as well. So coming through like the Prince of Darkness in that all matte black carbon car. Down the straight to lead. Lap number 6, half race distance completed now. Jason Macris is in Macris size-up mode. This is what he's famous for. He'd probably be a better endurance racer because he likes to really sit back and size someone up. And when he makes a move, he makes a move and makes it stick, so gets on through.
The fastest lap of the race there for Lauke, a 30.0. Still a ways off what they did in qualifying. The 1 minute 26.9 was the pole time, but clearly now it's quite warm and the track conditions not at its best for quick lap times. But I think we'll see them getting faster and faster. Lauke's got a little bit of clear air, but he'll be hunting down those 2 in front.
Comes the thumping Adass after that spin down at the bottom turn. Starting to pick his way back through the field. At the moment, that car running back in 11th position as Patton goes up into 9th spot now. And Drake starting to feel the pressure now. He's got 3 cars starting to queue up, including Macris, Lauke and Purdy. Paul Trengove just sitting at the back of this group of cars in 5th position to see what will play out in the closing stages.
You just know that Paul Trengove's going to have the car under him that he wants in that last 2 laps, and he'll start to bring those lap times down. Lauke running wide, shows the inside to Blake Purdy. Blake Purdy doesn't run him off the track, does it politely, and says, righto, thank you. I'll duck back in behind, maybe one more lap, Mark, and then I'll have a good look at the other 2 in front because he is a genuine outright contender. There's a couple of different classes being run. P1, which is what we're watching at the front of the race, the outright champions, and if you get up close, we probably can't see it on the live stream, but certainly on the numbers they've got their classes that they're running in. These are all P1 cars we're looking at. P2, which is cars that are competing in beginners, or they're encouraging some of the previous competitors come back in the game, and the Radical class, which we're just starting to see. The first of the Radicals is Carmelo Bonaventura from Melos Rendering, a ripping bloke and doing a tremendous job, but just starting to hear some of those turbo cars starting to...
How cool is that?
It's like a Sierra, isn't it?
Yeah, you hear
like a touring car.
the blow-off valves. Sounds cool.
Does sound cool.
You'll get Rusty started.
Rusty will do his best VL turbo impersonation.
Totally. Sounds like the real deal, doesn't he? Across the back, this is Stolbaum coming through turn number 5. Much hillier through here. You've done enough laps around here over the years. It's fascinating to watch this when you park around the circuit and watch how much climb and incline and decline, I guess, goes on the circuit.
Yeah, especially here, it's Corporate Hill. It's probably one of the higher points of the racetrack, and there's a lot more undulation. You see the cars coming back at you there when you come over Corporate Hill. You see them coming out of turn 3, so it's quite a cool thing during a race. You get a really good yardstick on where the other competitors are running, but yeah, a lot of undulation, and it's a cool track. And in these ground effects cars, I think it'd be pretty cool as well because you've got a lot of downforce, a lot of corner speed, and that's what I've been surprised so far this race. Typically with high downforce, you don't get the ability to follow so closely because that air is disturbed, but they're actually quite, following quite closely through a lot of the turns.
It is interesting. I guess these cars initially started off as track day cars out of Europe and North America, and they weren't so much involved in that. Now they've started to have series around the world. They're giving them more of that downforce effect, and really does for guys on a career trajectory like Purdy, who's currently sitting in 4th place, starts to give the feel for that. And it is interesting, once you see someone new in a prototype get in, the first thing they're told is, now you've got to trust the downforce. And they go out there and they're flapping around 7 or 8 seconds off the pace, and then they come in and they have a chat with someone and they go, like James Winslow or something like that, who coached some of these guys early on, and then all of a sudden, 7 seconds.
Yeah.
Just trust it. It'll hold you on.
And it's a crazy feeling. So, I mean, we talk about it a little bit, but to simplify it, I mean, the wings and the downforce work like an upside-down aeroplane wing. In an aeroplane, they're designed to get the plane in the air, and on a race car like this, it's designed to get the car to stay on the ground. So it's a really weird feeling when you haven't come from an aero background, and it's kind of free grip if you can get the most of it. And what it means is a quicker lap time. So it's really hard to trust it and get to know what the grip level is. Jason
Macris now has got the Hankook tyre starting to come on right at the right end of the race here. He's done the fastest lap on lap 8, a 1:29.1. He's only now 1/10 of a second faster than JP a lap earlier, but Macris has now got 2 purple sectors, and he's going quick, setting out after the brand new car of John Paul Drake. He's got a nice lead there. It's just gone a second. So JP has responded on that last lap and now running with each other. So a second with 3 laps remaining. It's a century in these things. They've got to be right on it.
Blake Purdy's lost touch with the guys ahead. Here he is coming up to the top of turn number 2 that was resurfaced in the lead up to this. And Jack, what's that feel? I mean, this track hasn't been fully resurfaced. How do you apply yourself when you come through a turn that's got loads of grip like turn 2, but conversely down there at turn number 5, there's no grip?
Yeah, it's a challenging thing, especially a City Motorsport Park. They sort of continue to resurface various corners and patches around the circuit. There's a patch at turn 1, and when you come in on the really old surface, it's like a supercar or cars with less aero dancing around, and then you grab this patch of new bitumen midway through the corner, and it's kind of like a cushion in Speedway, or it gives you this massive boost of grip. So it's been a bit of a challenge, especially for the TCR competitors this weekend, because it changes the way you need to set up the car, because the car will do one thing on the high grip surface and then do another on the low grip. So typically when you give the cars grip, they get a bit of understeer, and then when you take grip away from them on an older surface of bitumen, you get more oversteer. So it's a tricky thing, but it means you just need to really concentrate, and you use the visuals of the colour of the bitumen.
Have a listen to this thing. Doesn't that sound cool? 3 commentators grinning from ear to ear because we've got it moving into our headsets at the moment.
And we've got the window open in the commentary box too, just to let it go past and give us real acoustics.
This is cool. And like I said, the good thing about this is this car will now have some balance and performance applied to it. They started this weekend because it's their first round. Everyone was on like a 0 setting. So there's going to be some of this. Let's have a listen to the Ades. I feel like I should be having a champagne or something sitting in a corporate area at Le Mans.
I love this shape of car. I love how they've got a windscreen and an enclosed cabin. It really reminds me of that late 80s, early 90s in the Le Mans 24-hour. And they're just a cool car. And like I said, they came out to the Bend a few years ago as part of the Asia Le Mans series. And hopefully when all the international travel restrictions change in the future, they'll be able to come back out here and have some more international superstars driving those cars.
Like the 956s and the Mazda 22Bs, they screamed their way around.
It was a golden era, wasn't it?
Hey, we've got a race going on here, boys, and this is closing up right at the front here. Both PSA-powered cars, or Peugeots, as they say on the engine box of these cars, both turbos, and both good mates. In 2019, Jason Macris had to bow out of the championship. JP had a crashed-up car, so he drove his car in the last couple of rounds of the championship. So that's how good a mates these two are here. And JP has not given anything but eyes forward at the moment. You're looking out underneath that halo. Really cool to see that new safety aspect coming into these cars. You can actually see on the Wolf, the early version, where that front hoop coming forward there as well. So that's great. And John Paul Drake's got to go back to Adelaide and run a big business, and everyone wants to see him doing that. So in a safe car, he does it. Have a look at Macris under brakes, closing in at turn 2. The other thing is, if you're a tarmac engineer or a road builder, put one of these cars around. They'll show you where the bumps are.
Exactly.
They really wobble on their axles, don't they?
And just talking about the halo, I was fortunate enough last year to drive an S5000 for Gary Rogers Motorsport, and it was the first time for me driving anything with a halo, and it was interesting because you have this impression that it's going to be in your line of sight, but I didn't even recognise it when I was out there. So
wow.
It's a great safety introduction, and it's cool to see them coming into these cars. You can see, like you say, the car there in second has got just a normal sort of roll cage hoop, but it's got forward bars for some front impact safety measures, and then now moving into the Halo, which is what we're doing in Formula 1 and around Europe.
Is that when your visor sticker grew an extra 15 millimetres of Perkins engineering on it? Was that say you didn't see it because it was in the hoop?
It was weird. It was the first time I had to clean some bugs off my helmet for a while. But that was a cool experience for me.
Here we go, the final corner. Macris tries to send it, but he just can't. He looks to the outside. He's really giving JP the work over. I told you he'd be lining him up. Let's see how the drag race goes. But Macris runs wide, and that puts paid. In fact, he was right off the back of the ripple strip there. JP looking in the mirrors for his good mate and closes it in to the line. And there it is, checkered flag. John Paul Drake takes race number 2 for the weekend in the Australian Prototype Series. Just over his good mate Jason Macris. Or are they no longer good mates now that they're in a title hunt with each other? No, they'll still be good mates. Mark Lauke brings it in to P3, and Blake Purdy, a massive welcome to the championship there to Blake. And let's hope that the Nippies Wolf comes on strong throughout the rest of the season here. John Paul Drake waving to anyone and everyone around the track, thanking the flag marshals. There goes Blake Purdy. Paul Tringove comes to the line.
He'd be happy with that result, 5th place.
I tell you what, he's been out tech. Like these cars out in front are current spec stuff. He's in like over a 10-year-old design vehicle. Have a listen.
Yes. One more time. Let's crank it up as they come past the finish line. Great sound, and it comes home for 10th position.
Fantastic.
Final race of the Prototype Series here today.
Isn't that cool? Von Ray Latour. Thank you so much, the revered.net.au team, for bringing that car out here. And let's hope we see it at every round of the prototypes and grow more of them, because they're a relevant place to be here. Here it is. John Paul Drake for Jam Motorsport out of South Australia takes the win over Jason Macris for Jam Motorsport there at Gold Coast Marine. Mark Lauke for Lauke Flour Mills. Blake Purdy for Nippies, PKJ Transport. Paul Tringove, Carmelo Bonaventura, the first of the Radicals home in 6. Glenn Starbaum, Peter Patton, who's got a Radical race coming out in about 2 minutes' time. Stephen Champion does as well. And the LMP3 car rounding out the 10. Sue Hughes, Bill Medlin, Chris Perini, Phil Hughes DNF'd, and unfortunately Ian Eldridge as well.